I had a system, but it was a total piece of junk. I found myself in a place called the Upper Thousand Provinces, a realm far beyond the stars. High above, 12 ancient bronze mirrors floated in the air, reflecting the strange phenomena occurring within the Qin family's ancestral lands. An old man known as the Heavenly Seer ran his withered fingers across a star map. His eyes were cloudy, mirroring the shattered constellations above. He whispered that the Qin family was actually trying to create a supreme immortal body. In the Grand Hall, 12 ancient beings remained silent. No one could stop the Qin family from breaking this taboo. Legend says that at the dawn of time, the Origin God clan existed. They were immortal from birth, could pluck stars with their hands, and shatter worlds with a single breath. After them came the Celestials, beings born as saints. But as the ages passed, those bloodlines thinned to nothing. Now, only one forbidden method remained to reclaim that power. You had to take 108 immortal bones and 1,080 supreme bones, then use a secret technique to melt them down over a century. The Qin family didn't expect to birth a true origin god, but they believed in another legend. If you nourished a fetus with those bones for 100 years, an immortal body would be born. They wanted a Kirin's son, a child of supreme destiny. The world I was in was divided into the lower, middle, and upper 1,000 provinces, the 3,000 Dao provinces. At the very peak of the upper provinces sat a supreme heaven called the 10 Directions Celestial Court. It was ruled by the 10 Great Earth clans, and the Qin family was one of the strongest. They had nearly 100 emperors and one supreme heavenly emperor who could suppress eternity with a single hand. I was inside the Qin family's forbidden grounds, right outside the Jitian Tower. 10 terrifying auras filled the air. These were the clan elders, peerless emperors who had lived for tens of thousands of years. They stood there with heavy expressions, their eyes fixed on the tightly shut bronze doors of the tower. Inside the tower, the ritual was reaching its peak. 1,080 supreme bones circled the room like stars, draining golden energy into the center. Inside that circle, the 108 immortal bones formed a complex array, refining that energy into chaotic source essence and pumping it into the unborn baby. "It's been 3 days," the Grand Elder, Qin Xiantian, muttered, his voice hoarse as he gripped his whisk. Beside him, the second elder stood with his hands behind his back. He looked calm, but his sleeves were trembling. If this failed, a century of effort would vanish. "It's starting," a voice boomed from the heavens. It was the Qin family ancestor, a heavenly emperor. As he spoke, the supreme bones shattered, turning into starlight that filled the sky. The 108 immortal bones erupted with blinding light, like 100 suns, and dove straight into the tower and into the child. The entire forbidden zone shook. Space itself began to crack. Qin Fuhe stood at the top of the tower, his black robes whipping in the gale. He watched the massive defensive formations he'd spent 1,000 years building ripple under the pressure. "The madam has given birth," a midwife screamed from inside. Qin Fuhe's hand tightened on the railing. He heard the cries of pain from his daughter-in-law, Yin Xiuying. Then, a pillar of light shot out from the delivery room, piercing through all 33 layers of the protective arrays. "Wah!" A clear cry rang out. A brilliant, immortal light exploded, illuminating the entire realm. When Qin Fuhe finally held the swaddled infant, he froze. The baby was surrounded by a hazy, chaotic mist. It felt ancient, something that made the very world tremble. The child's skin was like translucent jade, his bones glowing like glass. I could see 3,000 golden Dao patterns swirling in his blood. But the most terrifying part? Every breath the baby took created a vortex of spiritual energy. With one breath, he broke through the 5 levels of the Qi refining stage. By the next breath, he had reached the Dao foundation stage. Normal geniuses took years to build a foundation. This kid did it in seconds, and his foundation was rock solid. "The Dao is manifesting. The bones are heaven-made." One of the elders whispered, his voice shaking. "Is this the longevity immortal body?" The ancestor, Qin Tai, appeared out of thin air. He took the child from Qin Fuhe, his old eyes filled with excitement. The longevity immortal body was a cheat code. It meant the child was born immortal and was guaranteed to become a true immortal. The only downside was that cultivation was usually slow. But for the Qin family, time was the one thing they had plenty of. In this world, above a peak emperor was a great emperor. Above that was a heavenly emperor. And above even that was a true immortal. And this child was already destined to get there. That baby was me. I opened my eyes and saw a group of old men staring at me like I was some kind of miracle. Everything felt different. It was sudden, but the truth hit me fast. I was a transmigrator. In my past life, I was a wealthy playboy who loved living on the edge. I guess I took things a bit too far because the last thing I remembered was a thrill-seeking stunt gone wrong. Then, darkness for a long time. But I hadn't missed a word they said. I realized I'd just been reborn into a fantasy world. Not only did I have an insane constitution, but I was also the ultimate, immortal second-generation heir. I blinked, a flash of golden light crossing my pupils. If heaven gave me this perfect start, I wasn't going to waste it. My soul craved excitement, and I wasn't about to live a mediocre life. I set a goal right then and there. I was going to travel through the myriad worlds and see it all. But first, something weird happened. A voice rang out in my head, and I seriously started to wonder if I was the one who was crazy. Ding! Congratulations to the host for awakening the poor clan counterattack system. The voice continued, claiming it would help me, the youngest and least favored child of a struggling clan, reshape my life, and start a journey to the top. I watched the loading bar crawl across my vision. 0.002%. It was going to take a while. I looked around the room. The hall was filled with immortal mist. The people standing around me were so powerful that their mere breathing made the space tremble. This was a poor clan. Either I was hallucinating, or this system was broken. In this world, power was everything, divided into 23 major realms. It started at the 5 extremes and went all the way up to the heaven and earth realm, which sat beyond the laws of the universe itself. For a normal person in the upper realms, reaching the 3rd stage, the spiritual altar, took 15 years. Even geniuses needed a decade. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. The Qin family's heaven-stealing plan couldn't be hidden anymore, and honestly, they didn't care to hide it. I spent most of those 5 years sleeping. The best part? My longevity immortal body meant I cultivated automatically while I napped. It was the ultimate lazy man's cheat. Outside the clan, everyone was talking about the Qilin son of the Qin family. Even though I was the youngest of the 9 direct heirs, I was the most spoiled. One morning, my teacher, Qin Wenhe, was lecturing me. He looked like a refined scholar, but the man was over 30,000 years old. He was handpicked by the ancestor to guide me. "Young master," he said, holding a jade scroll. "Even with your immortal bones, your constitution is slow to progress. I estimate it will take you 8 years to reach the spiritual altar realm." I blinked at him, trying to look innocent. 8 years? But I just broke through when I woke up this morning. I let my aura shift. A heavy pressure from the spiritual altar realm spread through the room. The spiritual energy inside me surged like a literal river. I had connected my 5 extremes and reached the 3rd realm effortlessly. Qin Wenhe's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He almost crushed the jade scroll in his hand. He tried to keep his composure as a teacher, but I could tell he was reeling. It took him 11 years of bitter cultivation to reach this stage, and here I was, 5 years old, and already there with a rock-solid foundation. Ahem, he coughed, acting calm. "Very good. It seems I underestimated your talent." He looked at me with a complicated expression. I looked like a kid, but my eyes held the depth of a starry sea. Before he could say more, a maid in green rushed in. My grandfather, who was running the family while my father was away at war, wanted to see him at the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion. Once he left, I grabbed a translucent peach from the table and took a bite. This wasn't just any fruit. It was a genuine immortal peach. It took 60,000 years to flower and fruit. One whiff could let a mortal live for millennia. To me, it was just a snack to wash down my breakfast. Suddenly, a chime echoed in my brain. System loading, 99.99%. Ding, loading complete. The Poor Clan counterattack system is at your service. Detecting that the host is currently in a difficult situation, lacking resources, and suffering from neglect. My expression turned hilarious. First of all, this broken system took 5 years just to load. Second, difficult situation. I just ate a peach whose pit alone could start a world war between holy lands. Lacking resources, my warehouse was so stuffed with treasures from the ancestors that it was basically a national treasury. And suffering from neglect. Just yesterday, the ancestor had even visited me in person just to make sure my cultivation hadn't hit any snags. I sat there, silent, but the system's voice kept ringing in my ears like a persistent fly. You were born into a humble clan of cultivators, the voice droned on. Your mother was a lowly courtesan, and you were born with a trash physique, unable to cultivate. You've suffered the cold shoulders of your family. Your resources have been stolen. You can't even get basic supplies. I blinked. Was it talking to me? At first, you were happy to move out of the muddy alleys and into a great family. The system continued, its tone full of dramatic pity. But you soon realized this was a deeper abyss. As the youngest son of the 9th branch, you've never even seen your father's face. Your siblings bully you. Even the servants dare to snatch your resources to your face. Are you truly willing to accept this? Look around you. Don't you want to make those who look down on you kneel and tremble at your feet? The voice became seductive, dripping with temptation. Complete the counterattack tasks, and I will ensure you rise from poverty to become a supreme powerhouse. Cultivation techniques, divine weapons, beautiful women. Everything will be within your grasp. I almost choked on my peach. I wanted to laugh, but I also felt a strange chill. System, I thought, you've got the wrong guy. That's literally not me. System self-check in progress. Detection confirmed. It replied instantly. Host, Qin Wanchuan, the youngest son of a humble cultivation clan, suffering from bullying due to a natural trash physique. I looked around my palatial room. The Qin family owned vast lands and had great emperors guarding our lineage. If this was a humble clan, then the rest of the world was living in caves. My status was already at the absolute ceiling of the cultivation world. What was I supposed to counterattack toward? Total world domination? And trash physique? My longevity immortal body was a legendary constitution that would make a great emperor green with envy. System self-check complete. No errors, the voice insisted. Host, please do not be overly ambitious. Only by discarding your illusions can you take the first step toward your counterattack. Beginner task issued. As a humble son, even the maids dare to humiliate you. Within 5 days, teach a maid a lesson and make her kneel and beg for mercy. I looked out the door. I had over 200 maids in this pavilion alone. Which one was it talking about? This trash system had definitely bound itself to the wrong person. Setting aside the ridiculous backstory, I was the 9th young master of the Qin main bloodline. Those 200 maids spent every waking hour competing for a chance to be my personal attendant. If I so much as frowned, they'd be terrified. Who would dare humiliate me? Task confirmed, the system barked. By the way, the probability of this system making an error is as low as the probability of the world ending. It was stubborn, I'll give it that. Since the host is skeptical, a beginner gift pack is being issued, it said. Yellow grade low rank technique, Qi drinking art. 10 low-grade spirit stones. 1 bottle of Qi gathering pills. Please collect. I stared at the pile of junk that appeared before me. I was speechless. A yellow-grade technique? I didn't even know those still existed. Everything I practiced was earth-grade or higher. And low-grade spirit stones? I used earth-grade spirit liquid just to take a bath. That was the real currency of the 10 directions immortal realm. As for the Qi gathering pills, my teacher, Qin Wenhe, mentioned them once. They were used by bottom-tier cultivators in the lower realms for body tempering. In the upper realms, we wouldn't even feed that stuff to the dogs. Please complete the task quickly, the system urged. Reward, +5 origin, +1 simulation. Current origin, 250, 2.5x multiplier. My expression shifted instantly. Origin was the very foundation of a person. It determined potential and cultivation speed. My longevity immortal body was amazing because I could break through without bottlenecks, but it had one massive flaw. It was slow, much slower than most saint-level physiques. If I could increase my origin, my cultivation speed would skyrocket, perfectly fixing my only weakness. Usually, only a great emperor could help someone increase their origin. But this broken system was offering it for free? Okay, fine. I'd play along. I looked toward the distance and beckoned to a passing maid. I didn't even have to say a word. She hurried over, dropped to her knees immediately, and waited silently for my orders. Ding. Congratulations, host. Task completed. Reward issued. +5 origin. Current origin multiplier, 2.55x. A strange, surging power flooded my body. I stretched, feeling every inch of my skin tingle with ease. It felt like a missing puzzle piece had finally clicked into place. I felt more complete. I checked the interface. My remaining lifespan was listed as 999 years. My origin was now 255, giving me a 2.55x cultivation speed. It wasn't world-shaking yet, but it was just the beginning. If I could keep increasing this, I could hit 5 times, 10 times, maybe even 100 times the speed of a normal genius. System, what is this simulation thing? I asked. Once per day, you can consume a simulation charge and a portion of your lifespan to deduce your future, the system explained. After each simulation, you can choose one of 3 rewards: lifespan, cultivation insights, or origin. Note, as a trash tier host, your most precious resource is your lifespan. Sacrifice life to become stronger. There was even a little warning in brackets. Sacrificing life carries risks. Please act within your means. How thoughtful. I glanced at the cost. The first simulation required 30 years of life. I looked at my remaining lifespan of 999 years and laughed. This thing really thought I was immortal. My longevity immortal body didn't just have 999 years. A single drop of my blood could give a lower realm cultivator 1,000 years of life. The system's display simply couldn't handle more than 3 digits. I didn't need the lifespan, and unless the insights were Earth grade, I didn't need those either. But the origin? That was gold. Let's do it, I muttered. Start the simulation. Simulation beginning. The screen flickered. Year 0. You are born in Qixia Town, a tiny, unremarkable village on the fringes of the Qin family's influence. On the night of your birth, the stars shift slightly. 5 children are born in the town at the same time: the blacksmith's twins, the grain merchant's son, a beggar woman's daughter, and a madwoman's daughter. Year 1. You are born blind. The midwife gives you a name on behalf of your crazed mother, Yi Jianwei. I froze. Wait. System, who the hell is this? It is the host, the system replied flatly. I pointed at the screen, my finger trembling. Read those 3 characters out loud. Yi Jian Wei. My name is Qin Wanchuan. That's not me. The system does not have the authority to view simulation content, it replied. It's not me. This is some guy named Yi Jianwei. His name has 3 characters. Your name has 3 characters. Therefore, you are him. Logical, the system countered. I took a deep breath. This system was definitely malfunctioning. But I had to know how far this absurdity went. Continue the simulation, I commanded. Year 2. You have gained consciousness. I was born blind. Even though I couldn't see, I was unnaturally sensitive to the spiritual energy around me. My mother was a madwoman. On the rare occasions she was lucid, she would hold me and mutter the same phrase over and over. See the small to know the great. By the 3rd year, I learned the truth from the neighbor's gossip. My mother had once been a famous courtesan, a beauty who sold her art, but not her body. She had been seduced and then abandoned by a young master from the Yi family. The betrayal broke her mind. She never recovered. By the 4th year, a new emperor took the throne of the central Zhou dynasty. I spent my days caring for my mother and working odd jobs for the neighbors to scrape together a few coins. I had a simple dream. I wanted to save enough money to fix our leaky roof. But dreams don't survive long in this world. In my 5th year, my mother wandered into the street and was struck by a carriage belonging to the Yi family. She died on a rainy night. Right before her last breath, her mind cleared. She gripped my hand tight. Jianwei, you can't survive alone, she whispered. Instead of suffering in this world, just come with me. I wanted to follow her into the grave, but I couldn't leave her body to rot in the dirt. I tried to sell myself into servitude to pay for her funeral, but no one wanted a blind boy. Just as I reached the brink of despair, a mysterious stranger passed by. He handed me a tattered jade slip. Some things can't be begged for, blind boy, he said coldly. Learn the zither. He left me with a broken zither and a fragmented manual. the Nine Heavens Zither Emperor Scripture. By the 6th year, I began my cultivation. Following the manual, I successfully broke into the first realm, the Five Extremes realm. A year later, disaster struck Qixia town. Demonic beasts attacked. The blacksmith's twins were swallowed by fire. The grain merchant's son was rescued by cultivators from the Qin family. The beggar's daughter vanished. I only survived because my heightened hearing allowed me to hide before the monsters arrived. By the 8th year, I reached the second realm. My hearing became so sharp I could hear a mouse scurrying in its burrow miles away. By the 9th year, the town was being rebuilt. A local tavern needed entertainment. They saw I could play the zither and hired me as a worker. Finally, I had a place to practice. In my 10th year, I was practicing in the backyard when I overheard some gossip. Did you hear? 2 men from the Qin family, Qin Xian and Chao Xiangwen, actually had the guts to collude with outsiders. They stole a secret treasure and turned traitor. I scoffed internally. These great families were all the same. I went back to plucking my strings. Suddenly, I paused the simulation. Traitor? Turning against the Qin family. I stared at the text, my mind racing. The new emperor took the throne in year 4, which was 2 years ago for me. That meant this Yi Jianwei was the same age as me, 5 years old. The betrayal happened when he was 10. Even though the simulation was ahead of my current timeline, it was giving me a glimpse into the future. I knew exactly who the traitors were now. I wouldn't let them go, but there was no rush. Continue, I commanded. Year 15, I broke into the third realm, the spiritual platform realm. My music could now influence the human soul. One night, a drunken cultivator tried to force himself on me. When I refused, he attacked. I flicked a single string. The sound shattered his soul instantly. By year 16, my skills grew. I saved some money. My thin, sickly frame filled out, revealing a face of stunning beauty. The harassment from men only increased, and so did my disgust for them. It was time to leave this town. By year 18, I appeared to be nothing more than a blind street performer, but I had secretly reached the fourth realm. My music was now a physical weapon. A year later, I slipped into the Yi estate and killed the young master who had destroyed my mother. I found out the local Yi family was just a tiny branch of a much larger clan. They put a bounty on my head, and the hunt began. Year 30, I reached the fifth realm, the spiritual sea realm. My zither notes could manifest as sword chi. I spent my days dodging assassins and traveling the world, searching for the rest of the 9 heavens scripture. That same year, I heard that the emperor's tomb was opening. I decided to go. Year 55, I reached the sixth realm. At the tomb's opening, I saw the 10 great emperor families for the first time. The most dazzling figure there, surrounded like a star among moons, was a man from the Qin family. His name was Qin Wanchuan. Wait, I'm in there. I rubbed my chin, intrigued. I wondered what my cultivation level was back then. Year 56. Qin Wanchuan swept through the tomb, seizing every opportunity and treasure. But I didn't leave empty-handed. I found the complete 9 heavens zither emperor scripture. By year 80, I killed the head of the Yi family branch. I thought it was over, but even stronger masters began to hunt me. I didn't care. I kept pushing. By year 150, I broke into the 8th realm and slaughtered every single pursuer. Year 248, I reached the 9th realm. My zither techniques were perfected. To soothe my loneliness, I founded the Heavenly Sound Pavilion and took on disciples. By year 411, my sect was a major power. I stayed behind the scenes. The world only knew of a mysterious, blind master. The years blurred into centuries. Year 1700, I reached the 12th realm. Year 8650, I reached the 22nd realm. I was now a great emperor. The world called me the Zither Emperor. Not bad, I muttered. Becoming a great emperor is impressive. But the simulation wasn't over. Year 51,600, the world had forgotten my name, but when I reappeared, I had reached the 23rd realm, the Heaven-Earth realm. I was the first person in history to achieve this without the backing of a great family. The simulation ended. Yi Jianwei had become the Zither Heaven-Earth, a being who transcended the world itself. I sat in silence. A Heaven-Earth? That wasn't just luck. According to the ancestors, reaching that level required the perfect alignment of timing, location, and talent. If I could bring this Yi Jianwei under my wing now, I would be invincible. There are many great emperors in the world, but even the 10 great families only have 3 heaven-earths between them. One for the Qin, one for the Ji, and one for the Li. If the Qin family had a second one, the entire cultivation world would belong to us. And this girl did it in 50,000 years without any resources? If I gave her everything she needed, how fast would she grow? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I looked at the rewards. 1. 8,000 years of life. 2. The Earth Grade 9 Heavens Zither Emperor Scripture and its insights. 3. 810 points of origin. The lifespan was useless. The scripture was tempting, but the Qin family had plenty of techniques, and I could just get it from Yi Jianwei later. I choose 3, I said. The familiar surge hit me, but it wasn't just a boost in power. My immortal bones vibrated. My flesh sang. Chaos light erupted from my marrow, flowing through my veins like a celestial river. This wasn't a minor tweak, it was a total evolution. A tiny crack sounded. A sliver of my leaked longevity energy hit a nearby ceramic pot, causing a withered seed to instantly sprout and bloom. The spiritual energy of the entire pavilion spiraled into a vortex, pouring into my 5-year-old body. My current origin multiplier, 10.6 times. This tenfold multiplier changed everything. Whether it was my cultivation speed or my ability to grasp complex techniques, I was now 10 times faster than anyone else. It perfectly fixed the one weakness of my longevity immortal body. I clenched my fists, feeling a subtle cracking sound echo deep within my bones. I had broken through. I was now in the spirit Dao realm, the 4th stage of cultivation. In the simulation, Yi Jianwei didn't reach this level until she was 18. I had done it at 5. The power of origin was truly terrifying. Footsteps approached the pavilion. It was Qin Wenhe. The sudden surge of energy from my breakthrough was impossible for a master like him to miss. I didn't wait for him to speak. I walked straight toward him, my small boots clicking on the floor. "Teacher," I said firmly, "I need to find a city, meet a person, and kill 2 old dogs." The dogs in question were named Qin Xian and Chao Xiangwen. They were members of the Qin family, but calling them dogs was an insult to dogs. They were traitors. Of course, dealing with them wasn't my main priority. I could leave that to Qin Wenhe. He was my teacher and my protector. My real focus remained on Yi Jianwei. Qin Wenhe stopped in his tracks. He looked down at me, his eyes widening in surprise. I barely reached his knees, yet I had just broken through right under his nose. He knew that despite my age, my immortal body gave me a mind far beyond any 5-year-old. He could tell I wasn't joking. Which city, which person, and which 2 dogs? Qin Wenhe asked carefully. He was choosing his words wisely, clearly trying not to corrupt a young child. "A place called Qixia Town," I replied. "There is a blind girl there named Yi Jianwei. She will become a heaven-earth level expert. As for the dogs, their names are Qin Xian and Chao Xiangwen. 5 years from now, they will conspire with other families and betray the Qin clan." I knew it hadn't happened yet, but the seeds of betrayal were likely already planted. A simple soul search would find the evidence. Qin Wenhe was a core member of the family. There was no point in hiding the truth from him. Betrayal? Qin Wenhe's pupils shrank. The Qin family had existed since the beginning of time, and traitors weren't unheard of. But he wasn't shocked by the betrayal. He was shocked that I knew about it. He was shocked I had found a future heaven-earth expert. Even the most powerful diviners couldn't predict the birth of such a being. He knelt down, stroking his beard. "How do you know all this, young lord?" I had my excuse ready. I blinked, looking as innocent as possible. "I saw it in a dream." "A dream?" "Yes," I said, nodding purely. "I saw it all while I was sleeping." I watched him process this. He had his doubts, but mostly, he believed me. It made sense to him. Since I was born, I spent 3/4 of my time sleeping, and I always woke up stronger. I was the first person in history to possess both an immortal body and a full set of immortal bones. If anyone could dream of the future, it was me. "What do you want me to do?" he asked softly. "Send men to find Qixia Town. Once it's found, I'll go there myself. As for the 2 dogs, I'll leave them to you." I gave him a thumbs up, acting like a playful child again. Qin Wenhe chuckled. One moment I was an innocent kid, the next I was a calculating monster. "Finding the town is easy," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "But I must ask, Under whose name do I kill these dogs? I tilted my head, acting confused. He explained patiently. If he acted on the ramblings of a child, he'd have to consult my grandfather first. But if it was an official order from me, the young lord, he could kill them immediately and deal with the consequences later. The problem was the fallout. If he used my grandfather's name, the old man would shoulder the blame. If he used my name and I was wrong, it would ruin my reputation in the clan. This was a test. The family had spent countless treasures to create me. I was their future. He wanted to see if a 5-year-old had the spine to take responsibility. The pavilion went silent. The only sound was the wind rustling the peach blossoms outside. I blinked and smiled. Then, the smile vanished. My eyes turned cold as ice. The playful aura around me evaporated instantly. "Teacher," I said. The incense smoke in the room seemed to freeze. Qin Wenhe held his breath. It felt like he wasn't looking at a child anymore, but a legendary conqueror. "In my name, kill them." The wind roared through the hall. It was a statement of absolute confidence. Qin Wenhe's eyes flashed with golden light, and a smirk played on his lips. This was the spirit of the Qin family's crown jewel. "By your command," he said, bowing low. With the Qin family's resources, Qixia town was located within hours. I prepared to leave immediately. Meanwhile, Qin Wenhe went to find the traitors. Qin Xian was currently at a floating island used for sparring. It was a massive arena made of black stone, surrounded by smaller platforms and red bridges. Clouds swirled around the edges as hundreds of young disciples tested their skills. Qin Wenhe stepped onto the field, his presence hitting the area like a lightning strike. He stood tall, his voice booming with spiritual power that shook the entire island. "Qin Xian, Chao Xiangwen, come forward and meet your end." The entire arena went silent. Sparring matches stopped instantly. Disciples looked on in terror, whispering to each other. They recognized Qin Wenhe as the elder who served the ancestor. They wondered what could possibly bring such a giant to a training ground. "Young master, this doesn't look good," Chao Xiangwen whispered, his face pale. He clearly had a guilty conscience. Qin Xian frowned for a moment, but then he relaxed. A smug, arrogant smile crossed his face. "Don't worry. They're probably picking the new Dao sons. He's likely here to grant us an opportunity." I knew Qin Xian wasn't just arrogant. He was delusional. He truly believed he was one of the clan's top talents. He straightened his robes, smoothed out the creases, and marched toward Qin Wenhe with a confident stride. The crowd of disciples parted like a sea, watching him with a mix of awe and envy. He moved with a practiced grace, his sleeves fluttering in the wind, radiating an aura of pride. He stopped in front of Qin Wenhe and bowed deeply, his voice loud and clear for everyone to hear. "Disciple Qin Xian greets the elder. May I ask what instructions you have for the two of us?" Chao Xiangwen followed close behind. He bowed as well, but his head stayed low. He didn't dare to meet Qin Wenhe's gaze. Qin Wenhe's eyes were sharp, like a hawk circling its prey. He studied them in silence for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "You are Qin Xian?" Qin Xian lowered his head further. "I am." The elder shifted his gaze. "And you are Chao Xiangwen?" "This disciple is Chao Xiangwen. I greet the elder," he stammered. The moment their identities were confirmed, the atmosphere changed. Qin Wenhe's eyes turned ice cold. A terrifying pressure erupted from his body, heavy and suffocating, locking down the entire arena. No one could move. "The 9th young lord has issued a command," Qin Wenhe announced. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a mountain. "Execute the traitors Qin Xian and Chao Xiangwen. Purge the clan of their filth." The arena exploded in hushed shock. The 9th young lord? Wasn't that the child born with the immortal physique? He was barely 5 years old. How could he issue a death warrant? Qin Xian's pupils shrank. The color drained from his face. "Traitor? Elder, what are you saying? I am loyal to the Qin family. I have never had a second thought." Chao Xiangwen started shaking violently. Cold sweat poured down his face as he instinctively tried to back away. Qin Wenhe didn't waste another breath. With a single thought, a flash of spiritual energy sliced through the air. It happened so fast that neither of them could react. 2 heads flew into the air. Qin Xian's eyes were still wide, frozen in a look of utter disbelief. He was a genius, a rising star who thought he had no equals among his peers. But in front of an old monster like Qin Wenhe, he wasn't even as significant as a blade of grass. He didn't even get the chance to fight back. Chao Xiangwen didn't even have time to scream. As their necks were severed, blood sprayed upward, but an invisible force caught it midair, keeping the arena clean. The weirdest part? They weren't dead yet. Qin Wenhe looked at them with total indifference. He flicked his finger, sending 2 wisps of law energy into their severed heads and bodies. He was forcibly locking their life force, keeping them in a state between life and death. Soul search, he muttered. A deacon elder stepped forward immediately. He pulled a shimmering shadow stone from his sleeve, ready to extract their memories. There's a seal, the deacon exclaimed, his expression turning grim. He found a specialized soul protection seal buried deep within their minds. There really is a problem here. In any other family, this seal would have stopped them. If you forced it open, the soul would simply self-destruct. But this was the Qin family. The deacon sneered and flipped his palm, revealing a glowing green leaf. It was a leaf from our family's divine tree of immortality. Its power crushed the seal instantly. Then, he ripped the memories straight out of their heads. Even though they were decapitated, Qin Xian and Chao Xiangwen were still conscious. The pain of having their souls peeled apart inch by inch was enough to drive anyone insane. Their lives began to play out like a scroll, recorded perfectly by the Shadow Stone. The early memories were normal. Qin Xian was a gifted child, and Chao Xiangwen was a hard-working branch disciple. But then, the timeline shifted to a few years ago. A man in black appeared in the shadows of the Chao family ancestral hall. He had used the Chao family's connections to get to Qin Xian. With your current talent, you'll always be a sidekick in the Qin family, the man's oily voice echoed from the stone. We can help you, but it comes with a price. At first, Qin Xian refused. But the temptation was too much. He took their treasures to boost his cultivation, and he sold his soul to do it. The watching disciples gasped. He really was a traitor. I knew his sudden growth was weird. He was just average before, then suddenly he was better than me? But the shock didn't stop there. Chao Xiangwen's memories revealed something even worse. The entire Chao family was a nail planted by an outside force generations ago. They had been pretending to be loyal subordinates for years, secretly gathering intelligence and waiting for the right moment to strike. The deacon elder's face was dark with rage. These bastards, the Chao family was one of our most trusted allies. To think they were moles all along. He turned to Qin Wenhe with genuine respect. Sir, if we hadn't exposed this today, I can't imagine the damage they would have caused. It wasn't me, Qin Wenhe replied. He looked out over the silent crowd. Everything today was arranged by the 9th young lord. He found the traitors. He gave the order. With the evidence recorded, there was no more need for talk. Qin Wenhe waved his sleeve. The bodies and souls of the 2 traitors disintegrated into ash, scattered by the wind. Let this be a warning to you all, Qin Wenhe said coldly. He paused, then added a final chilling thought. The 9th young lord is watching you. A collective shiver ran through the crowd. They didn't even know me, but now they feared me. A 5-year-old child who could see the future and kill without a second thought. That was a terrifying thought. When Qin Wenhe brought the shadow stone back to my grandfather, Qin Fuhai, even the old man was stunned. He really said he saw this in a dream? Grandfather's teacup cracked in his hand. Amber tea leaked through the fractures, dripping onto the jade table. His voice was actually trembling. My 5-year-old grandson can see the past and future? He even found a future heavenly emperor with a blind girl? The hall fell into a heavy silence. Grandfather stood up, his robes swirling with power. He was clearly shaken. But before he could speak, the world around us simply stopped. Time froze. Even the steam rising from the spilled tea stayed perfectly still in the air. Let me see that stone, a voice echoed. It sounded like it was coming from the dawn of time itself. Grandfather's entire body jerked. The teacup in his hand shattered completely. Both he and Qin Wenhe bowed low, their faces full of reverence. We greet the ancestor. The air rippled, and an old man in simple hemp robes appeared. He had white hair, but the face of a youth. His eyes were the most striking thing about him. The left was a swirling galaxy, and the right was a rising sun. This was the Qin family's ultimate guardian, Qin Tai, an ancient heavenly emperor who had lived through countless eras. He took the shadow stone and tapped it. The memories of the two traders began to play out in the air once again. The memories within the shadow stone unfolded like a long, flowing river. Ancestor Qin Tai watched with interest. Suddenly, the image of the man in black within the memory froze. That man had used powerful artifacts to hide his identity, but to a heavenly emperor, those tricks were like a child's clumsy scribbles on fresh snow. The ancestor's eyes shifted. His left eye swirled like a galaxy, and his right eye glowed with the essence of life itself. His gaze pierced through the memory and projected directly into reality. Across billions of stars, the sky above the ancestral lands of the Zhou family, one of the 10 great emperor clans, suddenly split open. A massive, world-covering eye appeared. Even the Zhou family's ancient defensive arrays, built to withstand gods, were pierced through like thin paper. "Found you," the ancestor's voice whispered, echoing as if from the dawn of time. Before the Zhou family's own emperor could even react, the man in black and countless other disciples were instantly crushed into clouds of bloody mist. Their souls were peeled away, inch by inch. This was the power of a heavenly emperor. Even among the great emperor clans, if you didn't have a heavenly emperor protecting you, you were nothing but an ant. If not for an ancient pact between the 3 living heavenly emperors, the Zhou family would have been wiped out with a snap of his fingers. The giant eye in the sky slowly closed, and the ancestor's focus returned to our hall. "It was the Zhou family," he said calmly. "I've given them a small lesson. Handle the reparations. Since they dared to make a move against my Qin family, we'll strip their treasury bare." Grandfather looked up, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. "The Zhou family, we've stayed quiet for too long. Even rats think they can challenge us now." The ancestor waved his hand dismissively. His fingers began to move in a complex calculation, his eyes searching the void. "Investigate the family internally," he commanded. "Check every branch, every vassal clan. Turn them upside down. If you find a problem, kill them. Don't ask questions. I won't have even a tiny threat lurking near Qin Wanchuan. Not a single one." He paused, a look of pure, childlike excitement crossing his face. A look that hadn't appeared on this million-year-old man in centuries. The world thinks he just has a long life, immortal body. They don't realize that his ability to ignore karma and see the future is the truly terrifying part. His internal power is growing at a staggering rate. What is a heavenly emperor? My Qin family is about to produce an actual immortal. Grandfather gasped. The ancestor wasn't finished. 20 guards aren't enough. Double it. From now on, the 9th young lord's resources are to be set at the spirit rank. Grandfather blinked, looking confused. "Ancestor, what is the spirit rank?" "Our family resources were usually divided into 3 tiers, high, middle, and low, with 5 levels each. The young lords usually sat at the very top of the high tier. I just invented it," the ancestor said, his voice absolute. "The spirit rank means every single resource in the clan, treasures, secret realms, techniques, goes to Wanchuan first. Only after he has taken what he wants can anyone else have a turn." The air in the hall froze. Grandfather's heart must have been racing. This meant I was being placed above every other genius in the family's history. "Ancestor," Grandfather whispered cautiously. "The other young lords, they might feel it's unfair. It could hurt family harmony." The ancestor snorted, his sleeve fluttering with a force that made the hall tremble. "If they show even half of Wanchuan's potential, I'll give them the spirit rank too. But look at your other grandkids. One is a lunatic, one is a shut-in, none of them are normal. Only the eldest is decent with his ancient desolate saint body, but he's a complete idiot." The ancestor flicked his finger. A golden rune shot into the sky above our ancestral lands, expanding into a massive decree for all to see. "The 9th young lord, Qin Wanchuan, has merit in slaying traitors. Reward, 1 divine seed. From this day forth, he shall hold the spirit rank. No one shall object." The family's greatest treasure was the undying divine tree. A single drop of its sap could grant long life. A divine seed from that tree was priceless. If planted in a courtyard, it would turn the entire area into a divine land. Grandfather looked at the decree in the sky, his joy mixed with worry. He knew the ancestor was betting the next 1,000,000 years of the Qin family's fate entirely on me. "Grandson," he whispered. You have a heavy burden now. The decree shook the entire Qin family. Whether they were at home or across the 3,000 provinces, every member of the clan saw it. In the palaces of the other young lords, whispers began to spread. Spirit rank? The ancestor really likes to make a scene, one brother muttered. The sharper the sword, the easier it blunts. Only by hiding can one stay safe. It's almost the 9th brother's birthday, right? Good time to make some money. My research budget is going to drop, another sighed. But I suppose I should go visit him. Meanwhile, far away in the Red Dragon Abyss, the 5th young lord, my sister Qin Qingzhong, stood atop the head of a massive red dragon she had just slain. Her white dress was splattered with blood. A true dragon's heart should be good for 9th brother's body, she whispered to herself. She tilted her head, looking thoughtful. I wonder what color he likes. So much trouble. I'll just get a few. She sliced open the dragon's chest and pulled out the beating heart, sealing it in ice. Inside her spatial rift, several other hearts, gold, red, and purple, were already waiting. Suddenly, the abyss shook. An ancient dragon king woke up from the lava below, its eyes locked on her with pure hatred. Human, you dare. Qin Qingzheng just blinked. Her sword slid out of its sheath. Do you want to be a gift too? While the Qin family was thriving, the Zhou family was in hell. The ancestors' single gaze had torn their lands apart. 13 immortal islands crashed, their libraries burned, and thousands of disciples were dead. The head of the Zhou family, Zhou Xianming, knelt on the ground coughing up blood. I told you, he screamed at his elders. I told you not to provoke the Qin family. Why didn't you listen? In the world of the great clans, everyone has spies in each other's ranks. It was normal. But the Zhou family had lost everything just because their spy was caught before he could even do anything. The other great clans watched in silence. They knew the Zhou family was finished. They wouldn't even be able to compete in this generation. The fact that the ancestor had acted personally proved one thing. The Qin family's Qilin son was more important than anyone had imagined. They knew a monster had been born, but they still didn't realize just how terrifying I really was. Even though the Zhou family served as a bloody warning, plenty of people in the shadows were still starting to get restless. But I didn't care about them. I was the center of the storm, yet I had no idea what was happening behind my back. I was already approaching Qixia Town. Qixia Town sat on the very edge of the Qin family's territory. It was an unremarkable place, blue bricks, black tiles, and quiet streets. Occasionally, you'd hear a vendor shouting to sell their wares, but mostly, it was peaceful and ordinary. I stood on the deck of our immortal ship, watching the silhouette of the town grow larger in the distance. Honestly, I didn't need to come here personally. I could have just sent a few men to bring Yi Jianwei back. But I was curious. I wanted to see this blind genius for myself. Young lord, one of my guards said, sounding hesitant. We left without saying anything. Is that all right? Saying anything? I shook my head. I already gave them plenty of notice. The guards looked at each other, confused. I didn't bother explaining. If the elders truly didn't want me leaving, they would have stopped me. The fact that I was standing here meant they had already cleared the path. Usually, heirs aren't allowed to leave the estate until they're 10 years old. But the ancestor doted on me. Instead of restricting my freedom, he just doubled my security. I was wearing a deep black silk robe today. The jade pendant unique to the Qin direct bloodline hung at my waist. I had intentionally suppressed the chaotic divine light that usually swirled around me, but my eyes still held a depth that didn't belong to a child. Behind me, 20 Qin family guards stood like statues. Every single one of them was a top-tier powerhouse. With this group, I could walk through any high-level clan's front door and they wouldn't dare say a word, let alone a tiny border town. Young lord, we've arrived, a guard said respectfully. I nodded and looked down at the town from the clouds. My face was young, but my expression was steady. Where is he? The Qin family's experts had already secretly locked down the entire town before I arrived. I had told them not to move yet because I didn't want to interfere with the timeline too much. Right below us, the immortal ship circled in the air. Most of the guards vanished into the void, hiding their presence. I only kept 2 by my side as we stepped down into Qixia Town. As we walked, people on the street turned to stare. A 5-year-old child walking through a dusty town is one thing, but a child in expensive robes with a regal aura is another. My two guards followed behind me, their faces cold and serious, looking like they could kill a man just by glancing at him. Whose kid is that? He's so handsome. Must be from a big family. Don't stare. You'll get us in trouble. Even in the upper realms, not everyone is a god. There are plenty of low-level cultivators and commoners here, locals who have talent, but no resources because the 10 great clans control everything. At a damp intersection ahead, a few muddy coins lay scattered on the stone floor. A young boy, Yi Jianwei, was kneeling on a tattered straw mat. His fingers were trembling as he felt around for a spirit stone someone had just dropped for him. He couldn't see, but he could hear. The whispers of the crowd crawled over him like insects. They were filled with mockery, pity, and spite. Look at the blind kid trying to sell himself to bury his mother. Who'd want him? I heard his mom was a famous beauty at the Drunken Fairy Pavilion before she went crazy. Better she's dead so she doesn't drag him down anymore. He's got a decent face. If the young master of the Yi family hadn't put out the word, I might have bought him just to have a pretty servant. Exactly. Master Yi said whoever helps this freak bury that woman is an enemy of the Yi family. The insult stung, but Yi Jianwei just bit his pale lip. He reached out and tucked the edges of the straw mat around his mother's body. His fingernails were stained with dried red rouge. It was the last bit of makeup he had applied to her face before she passed. From the moment she stopped breathing, he knew he was alone in this world. He still remembered her final moments, her cold hands gripping his shoulders, her voice a desperate, wheezing sob. Jianwei, you won't survive alone. Don't suffer. Just come with me. He had wanted to go with her, but he couldn't bear the thought of her body rotting in the street. Mother, just wait a little longer, he whispered. I'm coming soon. Suddenly, the sound of hooves shattered the silence. Move. Out of the way. Damn it, that little brat actually dared to try and bury the crazy woman? The heavy hooves of scarlet flame beasts crushed the stone pavement, sending sparks flying. Vendors scrambled to pack their stalls. Pedestrians fled like a receding tide. A few children were knocked down in the chaos, but no one dared to complain. The third young master of the local Yi family was coming. Yi Jianwei flinched. He recognized those hoofbeats. His small, thin body instinctively lunged toward the straw mat, his hands frantically trying to roll his mother up so he could carry her away. But he was too small. He couldn't even move the fabric of her dress. In seconds, the heat from the beasts was right in front of him. A dozen Yi family cultivators dismounted aggressively. Leading them was a man in fine clothes named Yi Li. He was the third master, a man known for doing his older brother's dirty work. Yi Li's eyes locked onto the boy like a snake. He let out a harsh laugh. I told you no burial. It seems you don't take the Yi family seriously. He looked down at the wooden sign next to the boy that read, selling myself to bury my mother. Yi Li sneered and crushed the sign under his boot. He used his riding whip to tilt Yi Jianwei's chin up. Selling yourself? Look at this scrawny body. Nobody would take you even if you paid them. Before he could finish his sentence, a calm, childish voice cut through the noise. I'll buy him. Yi Jianwei's blind eyes flickered. It was strange. The moment those words were spoken, the entire noisy street went eerily silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. It felt like a single ray of light had finally broken through the dark. Which blind idiot said that? Yi Li barked, not even turning around. Don't you see the Yi family is busy? Get lost if you want to live. Yi Li swung his hand back in a powerful strike, his cultivation flaring. It was a heart-crushing palm, a move meant to kill. Snap! The sneer froze on Yi Li's face. He heard his own bones exploding, starting from his fingertips and moving up his arm like a string of firecrackers. His flesh and bone were turned to powder in an instant. Before he could even scream, a hand covered in black iron scales gripped his throat. The guard lifted the 200-pound man into the air like he was a sack of grain. Yi Li kicked his legs wildly, his left hand clawing at the armored arm, but he couldn't even leave a scratch on the scales. The other Yi family cultivators reached for their weapons, but suddenly, the entire world felt heavy. A crushing pressure descended from the sky. An invisible pressure crashed down like the heavens themselves were collapsing. The bluestone slabs of the long street shattered instantly, sending shards of rock flying into the air. The members of the Yi family, along with every wandering cultivator nearby, felt like they'd been struck by lightning. Their bodies slammed into the ground, completely out of their control. I watched as knees exploded into a red mist and faces were dragged across the rough stone, leaving bloody streaks behind. The entire market went deathly silent, save for the sickening crunch of breaking joints echoing through the air. "Lord, have mercy!" Yili gasped. His face was turning a deep, bruised purple from the guard's grip, but he still struggled to squeeze out a plea. "I had eyes but couldn't see. I didn't know you were a titan, please." The arrogance he had shown just moments ago was gone, replaced by pure, trembling terror. He looked pathetic. My guard's expression remained as cold as ice. He glanced over at me, but I was looking elsewhere. I didn't even give Yili a second thought. Seeing my lack of interest, the guard tightened his grip. Snap! Yili's neck was crushed like a dry twig. He died in agony, blood erupting from his eyes, nose, and mouth. Under the crushing pressure of the domain, the blood didn't fall. It hung eerily in the air, forming a cloud of floating crimson beads. In the final second before his consciousness faded, Yili was probably wondering if this was an assassination or a targeted strike against his clan. He was wrong. As his vision blurred, he saw me, a 5-year-old child, standing calmly in front of the little blind girl. He saw the legendary powerhouse who had crushed him standing behind me like a humble servant. Only then did he realize the truth. This wasn't a vendetta or a calculated attack. We were just giants passing through, and he was an ant that had been stepped on for making too much noise. Who are you?" One of the kneeling Yi family guards stammered. He was fighting the pressure with everything he had. "Our Yi family has a quasi-saint ancestor backing us." A quasi-saint. In the 1,000 prefectures, that's a title that carries some weight. One more step, and they become a saint, capable of founding a holy land. He thought the name would scare us. He seemed to have forgotten where he was. This was the 10 Directions Celestial Court. The 2 guards standing by my side, and the hidden shadows protecting me, were all in the 21st realm. Quasi-emperors. If the Great Earth avatars weren't so slow to move, my father would have sent 22nd realm guards with me. It wasn't that a quasi-saint was weak, it was just that my family, the Qin family, was far too strong. I finally spoke, my voice calm and flat. "Leave none alive." Maybe it was because my voice was still high and childish, or maybe it was just my nature, but I said it softly. To the enemies, however, it sounded like a decree from the depths of hell. "A quasi-saint ancestor, huh?" One of my guards smirked. He stepped toward the man who had spoken and casually flicked his finger. Thud! The Yi guard didn't even have time to scream. His head exploded instantly. His headless body slumped into a pool of gore like a sack of wet clay. "A mere quasi-saint isn't even fit to carry my young lord's shoes," the guard sneered. "Even if a saint or a great saint showed up, they'd be nothing more than a slightly larger bug." With a single thought, the remaining dozen Yi family guards collapsed. Their bodies looked untouched, but their souls had been wiped out in a heartbeat. They wouldn't even get the chance to reincarnate. If I hadn't been standing there, the guards wouldn't have left bodies at all. They would have turned the entire street into a red fog. The onlookers in the market were trembling, pressing their foreheads against the ground and praying. This wasn't a fight. It was a total erasure from a higher dimension. I turned my attention to the girl still kneeling on the ground. Yi Jianwei couldn't see the carnage, but she could hear the bones snapping and smell the thick, metallic scent of blood. She bit her lower lip so hard it bled. She had heard me say, "I'll buy him," but she was terrified it was a hallucination brought on by hunger. Just like the time she thought she heard her mother calling her in the middle of the night. She prayed it was real. If it was, she could finally bury her mother. She was smart. She knew we were from a world she couldn't even imagine, but she had no other choice. Please buy me," she whispered, leaning forward into a deep kowtow. "I only need 500 spirit stones. I'll serve you for 5 years. No, 10 years. I can work hard." Her voice trembled with the desperate hope of a drowning person grabbing at a piece of straw. I stood silently before her. The hem of my black silk robes brushed against the edge of the straw mat where her mother's body lay. I looked down at this blind girl who, in the future I knew, would become the Qin Heaven Emperor. Right now, she was just a beggar. As her forehead touched the ground, She must have caught the scent of the cold cedar incense on my clothes. It was clean, like fresh snow on a mountain, and it seemed to bring a flicker of warmth to her frozen limbs. I gestured to my guards. They understood immediately and dropped several heavy bags onto the stone. They weren't filled with spirit stones, but spirit crystals, currency worth thousands of times more. "These will buy your entire life," I said. My voice was clear, like a spring breeze. Yi Jianwei's fingers shook. When she touched the heavy bags, she pulled her hand back as if she'd been burned. "Young master," she rasped, her fingers clutching her tattered clothes. I'm not worth this much." She had heard of spirit crystals. Even the head of the Yi family would kill for a bag like this. Anyone else would have been ecstatic, but she was terrified. Why would a blind girl who couldn't even bury her mother deserve such a fortune? She pushed the bags back toward me with her muddy fingertips. "I don't want the crystals," she whispered. Just help me bury my mother. Give me 1 meal a day, and my life is yours." I looked at her. The future emperor was like a drenched bird, too scared to even accept a gift. I couldn't help but smile. That integrity was exactly why she would eventually reach the top. "My name is Qin Wanchuan," I said. I leaned down, picked up the bags, and pressed them back into her hands along with a warm jade pendant. "Come with me. From now on, your life belongs to me. You live only for me." The jade was warm to the touch. On one side, it bore the character for Qin. On the other, the number 9. Yi Jianwei traced the carvings with her thumb. The warmth from the jade seemed to flow up her arm and melt the ice in her heart. "Qin Wanchuan," she murmured, repeating my name as if trying to carve it into her soul. I didn't respond to her emotion. I turned to my guards. "Clean up the bodies. Prepare a proper coffin for her mother. And when we return, both of you can go to my treasury and pick 1 item each." The guards' eyes lit up with pure joy. "Thank you, young lord." Even the guards hidden in the shadows felt a surge of envy. Spirit crystals were just resources, but the items in my personal treasury were unique treasures that could start wars in the outside world. As the light from the spirit crystal bags leaked through the drawstrings, every cultivator in the street held their breath. Their eyes were filled with a mix of absolute shock and uncontrollable greed. The crowd watched from the sidelines, frozen by the horrific scene that had just unfolded. If not for the blood cooling on the pavement, they probably would have swarmed us like locusts. Greed was written all over their faces, but fear kept them back. Yi Jianwei remained on her knees, her body trembling. I could see the moisture in her sightless eyes. To her, the fact that her mother wouldn't be left to rot in the wilderness was a miracle. It was more than she had ever dared to hope for. I stood still for a moment, scanning the surrounding area. According to the simulations I'd run in my mind, the mysterious figure who gave the future empress her legendary technique should be arriving any second. I reached down and helped Yi Jianwei to her feet. "Wait here a little longer," I told her quietly. "I'm waiting for 1 person to arrive. Then, I'm going to wipe out a clan." She hesitated, her fingers tightening on the hem of her tattered clothes. Her voice shook. "Young master, we should leave. You killed the Yi family's men. They'll be here soon." She traced the character on the jade pendant I gave her, her voice dropping to a whisper. "My mother offended them once, and they ran her down. They said no one was allowed to bury her. She couldn't see the carnage around us. She had no idea she was standing in the middle of a slaughterhouse. If she did, she wouldn't be worried about a local family of bullies." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of irony. A small family, acting so bold, I mused. "No," she whispered, her shoulders shrinking as if remembering something terrifying. "The Yi family is very powerful. Many people have died because of them. We should go." My 2 guards almost burst out laughing. To them, a family in a backwater border town was nothing. They could crush 1,000 such families with a wave of a hand, especially since this town sat on Qin family territory. "Don't worry," I said, cutting her off. "Everything will be fine." I looked toward the end of the long street. Through the rain and mist, a man appeared. He walked with steady, rhythmic steps. He looked to be about 30, with sharp brows and eyes that shone like stars. He carried a fortune teller's banner on his back and a bamboo tube at his waist filled with clinking copper coins. He stopped in front of Yi Jianwei and lifted his bamboo hat. He started to speak, but then his pupils contracted. His divination had told him there would be one person here. Instead, he found a 5-year-old boy. I met his gaze. I didn't look like a child. I looked at him with a depth that didn't match my age. He instinctively began to calculate my fate with his fingers, but his expression quickly shifted to shock. Chaos. My fate was a void. It was as if I weren't a living person at all, but a sharp blade cutting through the river of time. Strange, he muttered, his bronzed face tight with disbelief. I have traveled 3,000 provinces for thousands of years, and I have never seen a fate I couldn't read. He shook it off and looked at us both. Little ones, I have a cultivation technique here. We are fated to meet. Who wants it? He glanced between us. He didn't care who took it. He just had to deliver it. He seemed certain I would claim it. I was clearly the leader, and the girl was blind. Why would she need a manual? Give it to her, I said calmly. The fortune teller raised an eyebrow, holding up a jade slip. Do you know what this is? I don't, I replied. Then why give it away? If I told you this treasure could change your entire destiny, would you still refuse? Give it to her, I repeated. She's more suited for it. Those 4 words hit Yi Jianwei like a physical blow. She had grown up in the dirt. She knew how dark the world was. People killed their own siblings for a handful of spirit crystals or a scrap of food. Yet here I was, giving away a destiny-changing treasure without a second thought. She gripped the jade slip he handed her, her knuckles turning white. She didn't understand. Was it because I thought she was pathetic? Or was it because I simply didn't care about such treasures? Whatever the reason, it overwhelmed her. Her eyes grew hot, and she looked down, terrified I would see her cry. In reality, my logic was simple. She belonged to me now. Whatever she had was mine anyway. The fortune teller chuckled and stepped forward, curious about me. My guards immediately blocked his path. He didn't fight them. He just flicked his fingers, reading their origins in an instant. Ah, the Qin family, he whispered with a knowing smile. I owe your ancestor a favor. Tell you what, I have a 6-character sword script. I'll give it to you. Learn the sword, boy. He looked through me, as if seeing into the distant future. He began to chant, his voice echoing through the crossroads with a wild, free energy. A single blade spans the sky, the stars grow cold. A lonely peak reflects the sorrows of 10,000 ages. Let the geniuses flaunt their grace. I remain unmoved above the clouds. He handed me a yellowed book. It wasn't fancy. There was no gold or jade. Just a single word written in messy ink on the cover, sword. The stroke of the brush was so sharp it felt like it pierced the paper. I looked at it, and a wave of killing intent hit me, so hard my eyes stung. I have a body of immortal bones. I can read high-level manuals without breaking a sweat. But this one word on a tattered cover made my vision blur with pain. This was beyond any normal technique. This was the work of a heaven-level emperor. I snapped my head up to look at him, but the fortune teller was gone. He had vanished into thin air. Young master. My guards scrambled, looking around in a panic. They had thought he was just a regular traveler. Now they realized how wrong they were. Relax, I sighed. That was a heaven-level emperor. If he wanted us dead, we'd already be dust. The guards turned pale. Even I was surprised. The rumors said the Sword Emperor of the Li family traveled the world to settle karmic debts. It made sense why he'd invest in Yi Jianwei. He knew she was destined for greatness. I thought about my own family. Of the 3 heaven-level emperors in existence, only the Qin ancestor stayed home. The others wandered the world seeking breakthroughs. It was a good thing they were busy. If they had seen the Qin family's heaven-snatching plan, gathering supreme bones and immortal bones into one person, they never would have allowed it to happen. Yi Jianwei's fingers trembled as she held her jade slip. She couldn't see, but she heard the word emperor. Young master, she said, dropping to her knees and holding the slip up toward me with both hands. This is too valuable. I can't take it. I'm blind. It's a waste on me. She looked like a frightened bird, her face tense, her eyelashes fluttering. I let out a soft laugh and reached out, stroking her messy, matted hair. There is no yours or mine between us, I said. As I touched her, a faint glow of chaotic immortal light flowed from my fingertips, quietly nourishing her fragile body. You belong to me now, I told her, my voice firm. Why worry about whose is whose? I'll study the techniques once we get back and teach you myself. My words were blunt, almost overbearing, but I saw her shoulders finally relax. She lowered her head and pressed the jade slip against her chest. It was as if she needed to feel its cold surface to know this wasn't a dream. A small, choked sob escaped her throat. For 5 years, she had been treated like trash. Now, for the first time, someone claimed her as their own, valuing her like a treasure. To her, being owned felt safer than being pitted. The guards finished preparing the coffin shortly after. They began moving her mother's body, and Yi Jianwei stepped forward to help. She took her mother's cold hand, whispering that she would walk with her one last time. She leaned in close to the body's ear, murmuring words she thought I couldn't hear. My senses were sharp, and every word reached me clearly. "Mother," she whispered, "I can't stay with you anymore. I have to live." I nodded slightly to myself. That was the right choice. Live, Yi Jianwei. Grow strong as the future pillar of the Qin family. Become the blade that helps me carve out my path. With her by my side and my own power growing, the Qin family would become the greatest clan in existence. We didn't stay in the town much longer. My group made our way back to the flying boat, hovering above Qixia town. It was a massive, pitch-black beast of a vessel, its hull etched with complex runes that shimmered with a cold metallic light under the sun. As we stepped onto the deck, I felt the slight vibration under my boots and the sudden surge of thick spiritual energy. Yi Jianwei felt it too. She couldn't see the ship, but she could feel the sheer power of the people around her. The pressure of their breathing alone seemed to make her skin sting. She stayed close to me, trembling but silent. I wasn't finished with this place yet. The Yi family still existed, and I wasn't about to let them slide. I didn't even need to look for them. I sat on the deck of the ship, my fingers rhythmically tapping the armrest of my chair. "Where is the Yi family?" I asked without turning around. A guard bowed deeply, his voice heavy with respect. "Young lord, they are located in the cluster of manors directly below us. We have counted 527 cultivators. The strongest aura is in the center of the estate. We have already locked onto them." I swept my divine sense across the area. It wasn't just the Yi family. The entire town was laid bare before my eyes. Every room, every person, every secret. "I see," I said softly. I looked down over the side of the ship. The outline of Qixia town shifted beneath the clouds. The Yi family's manor stood out, a sprawling complex of high walls and ornate pavilions. The glazed tiles on the central hall's roof flashed with a gaudy, vulgar gold in the sunlight. Right now, several powerful auras were gathering in the center of that courtyard. It seemed they had finally noticed something was wrong.